about ready to get started. So I will say, it sounds like at least a couple people in the audience are already fairly familiar with the game. I had no idea what kind of people were going to show up to this. So I came at this from the approach of, a lot of this is going to be like Q&A, like, what do you want to know? But I also, in the case of there being people that have literally never played Magic or another card game before, have made like a bit of a presentation to talk about that, as well as like some common stuff that, like, I was talking with friends, like, hey, like, when you started this game, like, what was the kind of stuff that, like, not the rules, but like culture stuff or like lingo stuff that you didn't know that you wish you had known? And that's going to be a lot of what this is, mainly because I can't teach everybody here how to play Magic. If that was your goal, I apologize. I can't really do that. I'm going to give you guys some resources if that's like a thing that you came here trying to learn to do, for like where you can do it. But it's hard to teach Magic, and it's harder to teach Magic when I can't like sit across from you and show you how. And also, this is being streamed online, and I have no idea how I would teach the basics of Internet Magic. Yeah. So we're not doing that. It is now past 5, so let's get started, and we'll kind of be going through this PowerPoint. I'll kind of just be taking questions, and we'll see how it goes. Rad. So my name is Laurel. I use they/them pronouns. Let's talk about our game. So for those of you that are like brand new here, you're like, I have heard about this Magic the Gathering thing. I do not know what it is. Please explain it to me. Magic the Gathering came out early 90s. Richard Garfield made it. He's a mathematician, very, very smart guy. He no longer works on the game, but he kind of was the one that first came up with the idea. He made like some other games first, and then eventually sold the idea to Wizards of the Coast, who make the game now. Wizards is owned by Hasbro, so for those of you that have played any of their other games or have watched the TV shows, like toys, they have to do with like My Little Pony, Transformers, all that kind of good stuff. Millions of players, I think 20,000 game pieces plus at this point. So if you needed somebody to convince you, obviously you're in this room, but if you needed convincing to try out this game, you know, there's lots of really cool stuff. At this point, we've got all these cool art treatments. So here's my question. It is a great time to get into Magic. Let's talk about how to do that. If you are the type of person that maybe like has friends that play, but you're a little awkward to like ask your friends to teach you because maybe your friends are really shitty teachers, I don't know. Maybe you're the kind of person that lives in the middle of nowhere and you don't really know where to find a community to start playing a card game like this. There's all sorts of situations that can arise. So let's think of a couple ways that if you are literally brand new to this game, you have never played, you have not downloaded an app, you have not like Googled it, you've just heard about it, and you're like, maybe I want to try this. Here are some options. Arena is a divisive way of playing Magic, but it has a very, very good walkthrough. If you have not tried this game yet, or if you tried Magic in the past and had somebody try to teach you that did not do so successfully and you left frustrated and confused, try the Arena tutorial. Even if you, after trying it, literally put it down and never pick up Arena again, it will give you a really good run through of how the rules work, how the stack works, which is probably the most confusing part of Magic the Gathering when you first get into it. You will have to listen to an annoying glowing ball named Sparky talk at you in a bad British accent. You can mute her. I recommend doing that. So, notable thing about Arena, if you do end up liking the way Arena looks, it looks a lot like Hearthstone or a lot of other digital versions of card games. If anybody's played like Legend of Runeterra, has a pretty similar UI. Arena is free to play, but it can get expensive if your goal is to actually people try to play like competitive Magic on Arena. It can actually be more expensive than paper Magic. It also only has sets from the last couple of years. Arena is a relatively new application, and if you're like, oh, I want to play Commander, which is the format that all my friends are playing, you won't be able to do that on Arena. I apologize. So definitely look into it if that's what your goal is. There is also a very divisive format on Arena called Alchemy. It's a lot more like other digital card games and does things that you can only do using a computer because like it has like memory and make sure that the person can't cheat. Some people like this format. A lot of people hate this format. I'm not going to give you like my opinion on it necessarily because I think that if you like it, you should play it. That's what matters. But it is relevant that you can only play Alchemy on Arena, so if that's something that you're curious about, that's where you have to try it out. If you have one, go to your friendly local game store. Go there anyway, like buy D&D books, even if you're not playing a card game, like buy dice, pick up a couple packs. Game stores need people to come out, and especially now we're struggling. But if you want to learn, a lot of stores have free starter decks. They're not particularly good, but they'll get you there. There's usually a couple cool splashy rares in there. Usually there will be a judge or two that is willing to show you the ropes. If there isn't, there's usually other players sitting around that will help. Like, it can sound really scary if you are the type of person that is anxious about getting into a new hobby to go to a game store, but I think that, and people in the audience that play Magic can probably like say that this is true, there is nowhere that you will find people are so willing to shove their hobby down your throat. They want to teach you. They would like to talk to you about the game. I am here talking to you about this game because I am that type of person. Everyone wants to help. Oftentimes people want new friends that share a hobby with them. So if you're like, boy howdy, I want to get into Magic the Gathering, somebody will be like, oh my god, you're my new best friend. We're gonna sit together. I'm gonna show you this game. I will say, if your goal is to go to a game store to learn, this isn't the case for all places, but if you have like if you look up like where to buy Magic cards in my area, and you get either a store that looks like it specializes in Warhammer, or a store that specializes in like trading cards, like baseball cards also, a lot of them don't have like card game actual play sections. You're looking for the ones that like also do like D&D and board games and stuff like that. Again, you can check some sports shops, some like Warhammer stores do have this as well. But I would double check because some of them it will just like you walk in, you'll be like, hey, will you show me how to play? And they'll be like, I have no idea what this game is, I just sell the cards. Next up, a couple more things to do after you maybe know the rules a little bit more. Again, I can't teach you the rules, I really wish I could. Honestly, if anybody here wants to learn a little bit more about how to play, I would be happy to talk with someone like afterwards. But after you know the rules, the first event that I recommend that people try out are pre-releases. Pre-releases are super, super fun, and they are a time when nobody knows how to do anything because they are released the week before a new set comes out. So usually about 4 sets come out a year in standard Magic. And the week before that set releases, there's this cool event where you get a box and you open the box and you get to see the brand new cards before anybody else does. And you build a little deck out of them, and then you get to play against the other people at the event, and you can win some more new cards, and it's awesome and fun. Some game stores even give extra prizes. I've played at ones where like if you're in the top 1, you get a free playmat. Sometimes if you they'll give you free sleeves, so people are usually there to help. It's a fun place where everybody's super excited. It's a good way to pick up new cards if you're just starting. It can seem daunting to know what to get, and sometimes the loot box effect of a fresh pack of Magic cards is very fun, and I recommend getting some play out of it too, instead of just buying the loot boxes, because you're not very likely to get your money back, unfortunately. I will be upfront with that. These events are beginner friendly. Again, people are usually very willing to help you out. I have seen everybody from like kids as young as like 7, 8, 9 at pre-releases doing really well. I've seen moms that don't play Magic the Gathering that have brought their 7, 8, and 9-year-olds to the pre-release, and they're like, yeah, I'll try too. It's a lot of fun, but again, you're going to want to at least know the rules well enough that you won't need somebody to like sitting behind you helping you out. They're not like an intro to Magic event, but they are a great option for beginners. Once you're like, you have a stack of cards, maybe try to pre-release, maybe try to arena a little bit. The next thing to know is just get out there, try what you like. Because I think the #1 question that I got when I was like asking people what they wanted to know when they started was like, how do I know what I should play? And unfortunately, there's not like a super concrete answer to that. There are so many decks that exist. There are so many decks that don't exist yet. There are so many formats, both official and unofficial, and the only way you can find out what you like doing if you know you like card games is to do it. If you're the type of person that maybe has played Yu-Gi-Oh! Or like, honestly, like newer card games, like the new version of the Digimon card game, My Hero Academia card game, if you have played a whole bunch of digital card games, like again, Legends of Runeterra, Hearthstone, you might be able to find like some decks in Magic that have similar strategies to a deck that you already enjoy playing. So that's definitely a good hopping off point to find out. But if you're like brand new to card games in general, best thing to do, take a look at some cards, and if you see something that you like, even if the card is not good, that doesn't matter. You can still have fun, you can still build a cool deck with it. Don't worry about what cards are the best when you're first starting. Honestly, don't worry about what cards are the best or like what's in the meta when you're like playing for 10 plus years. And I mean that because it can get really easy to get wrapped up in like having like the best cards, but this is a hobby and it's fun and it doesn't need to be something where you're like constantly worried about winning. It doesn't have to be something where you're spending so much money on this game. I mean, like it can be, and if you have the money to do that, obviously, I'm not going to tell you not to. I spend too much money on this game. And have fun. So let's go ahead and talk about like some places to play Magic, like if I'm looking to get in a couple games. This is going to be a little bit of the same information that I just talked about. We're going to get into some nitty gritty, some pros and cons of the options of like where you can go. There's a whole bunch of official and unofficial options. Obviously, if you have a friendly local game store, it is great to go to a game shop and actually play in person, but it's COVID times. You might live in the middle of nowhere, and that's not always viable. It's probably the most expensive. It can get more expensive to play online, but it is unlikely. What I will say is that if you are playing in person, especially if you're playing kitchen table, I am a strong proponent of proxies. There is no reason that you should have to spend a ton of money, especially if you're just trying this game for the first time ever. Build the most powerful deck you can and write them all on playing cards. Wawa napkins, it doesn't matter. You will still have the same experience playing the game, whether it is a beta Lotus or one that you like wrote out in Taco Bell sauce. It doesn't matter. It's still the same game. Try it out. If you're playing a casual format, as long as you're not in a rules-sanctioned like competitive event, most people do not care if you use proxies. Please, even if like you first try out this game and you're like, wow, this game is the best game I've ever played in my life, please don't immediately blow all your life savings on reserve list cards because you think that it's going to be your favorite game forever, because as much as I would like to say that it will be, it might not be. You can also try out Spell Table. This is kind of your hybrid option. It is a website that makes use of your webcam on like your phone or on your laptop. You can have your deck and play a game of Magic on the internet with the physical cards that you own. You can find, there's tons and tons of Discords that exist, including official, like Magic the Gathering licensed ones, where people are often just like, hey, I want to play a game of Commander. Hey, who wants to play Modern? If you don't own cards, there's actually a little bit of a workaround where you can use like a website, make a digital version of the website, and then use like a streaming thing to have that screen be your webcam. It's a little bit more involved, but it does work. You still need the physical cards if you don't have this, obviously. Let's talk about Magic Arena. Again, online version of Magic, it's free to play. It's pretty sleek looking compared to the other option I'm about to get in. It's available 24/7, so if you're looking to play a quick game of Magic, this is probably the one for you. It's available on your phone, so if you're in the bathroom and you want to play a game where you can do that. Again, there's some downsides. It can get expensive. Not everybody likes the formats that are available on there. And if that's the case, there is another digital option, which is Mitgo. Problem with Mitgo, it looks awful. It's super buggy, but it can be really, really inexpensive to play very, very powerful Magic on Mitgo. This stands, by the way, for Magic the Gathering Online. It has basically every official format available, a whole bunch of other formats. Most cards are available on Arena, on Mitgo. Not all of them. There's like some weirdo cards that aren't available. They're slowly adding them all in. Who knows? You can pay like $5 to rent like pretty much any cards, and then you can return them and they give you your $5 back and you can do it again. This is a really good way to test tons and tons of decks for really cheap. Mitgo, I believe, costs play, and then you have to actually buy the cards. This one is like not like it actually has like a secondary market, so even though the cards are digital, they're still something that you own and you can trade them and sell them, much like an NFT, but not as shitty. Let's talk about some formats, because I've mentioned a whole bunch of them. I only have a few listed here, and if you have heard of other ones and you have questions about what those mean, we can get into it. So there are tons of different ways to actually play a game of Magic the Gathering. A lot of times this has to do with which cards are allowed to be played with, because there have been cards printed from 1993 till today, and that's a lot of cards. So in order to make it so that people will play with the new ones, or people specifically with the old ones, and to make sure that people aren't playing with bonkers busted cards that cost thousands and thousands of dollars all the time, we have formats. So here's a few options. Standard is oftentimes what beginners kind of get started doing if they don't do kitchen table Magic, which is kind of just, I have a pile of cards and I'm going to play them and it's going to be fun. That's not a format necessarily, but it is super awesome, and I strongly encourage people playing kitchen table Magic. It's a great way to get started. Standard is probably like the first official format that a lot of people get into. It asks that you have a 60 card deck that uses cards only from the last year, basically. And once a year, that rotates, which means that the older sets get shuffled out. It's like, all right, man, you're too old, you gotta leave. Standard also has a ban list, so if a new card comes out and it is dominating the playing field, Wizards will often go, maybe we made a mistake here, let's nix that. There used to be a lot less bans. People that play Magic currently are probably aware that in Standard right now, they have been upping the power level a lot, and that means a lot more bannings have been happening. RIP Alrund's Epiphany, I think, is the most recent big card that got banned. Commander is currently the most popular format. This is my favorite format because it's very creative. Commander does not have a rotating format, and it basically says you can play with any freaking card that you want except for ones on this list. And honestly, if you're playing with friends and you go, hey man, can I play with this card even though it's banned, a lot of times people go, yeah, sure, why not? It is a 100 card deck that only allows you to have one of each card, and you get to have a commander who's basically like your general. He sits out on the side, and it kind of determines the theme of your deck and the flavor. It's super, super fun. This is a casual multiplayer format. I will give you the hard sell on Commander. I have a Commander deck in my bag right now. Before I came over here, that's what I was doing in the other room. Last but not least, I'm going to mention a limited format because not every Magic format has to do with you opening cards up beforehand, building your deck, and then coming to a store with your pre-built deck. If you have literally no cards and you're like, I want to do a Magic event, draft, sealed, limited events, those are the events for you. You walk into your event, they hand you some packs of Magic, you're doing draft, you open up one, and you draft them, literally passing them around in a circle to build a deck with a whole bunch of other people. These decks are smaller, and you're allowed to play with literally anything that you open up and grab in your draft. It's very fun. Notable thing about draft, it's a lot harder than people think it is. Draft is one of the hardest formats in Magic because it can be really confusing to know what to take when you look at a bunch of cards and you're like, oh god, what do I do? So maybe not like the first limited experience you want to put yourself through, but a fun one nonetheless. And even if you do, if this is the first limited thing you ever try and you do god awful, it'll still be fun and you still get to go home with the cards that you drafted. So let's talk some more like lingo stuff. Types of Magic players, people that play Magic will know these probably. Spikes are competitive Magic players. These are the people that want to win. They are playing the best cards, the most meta decks. They are going to the tournament. They are going to try to take first. That is definitely a way that you can play Magic. This might be your kind of thing. It might not be, and that's okay. Johnny is a deck builder. These are the people that are finding the wildest, craziest combos. They want to build their cool, fine-tuned machine and watch it go. It's okay not to win as long as I got to see my deck do its thing. The last type of Magic player is the Timmy. Timmy is known as the power gamer. This is like, I want to build a really cool angel deck because I like angels. I want to see a big giant dinosaur because that's super cool, super rad. You want to see big splashy creatures and big splashy spells. There is no right way to be a player. You can be one of these, you can be none of these, you can be all three. People often disparage Timmies. I'm in the Timmy appreciation group. Please play your big dinosaurs. I want everyone to have fun. I like seeing you with your mono white angel commander deck. I will let you do your thing, and I'm happy to see you do it. So let's talk about the colors, more lingo stuff. If you've never played Magic, it uses a 5-color system. These are colors of mana, and both have like kind of thematic elements as well as mechanical elements about like, okay, this costs 1 red, I need to have a red land to play it. White is your like law and order color. It is the color of many, many little tiny soldiers. If you have never played Magic and your goal is to feel like a cleric when you are playing Magic the Gathering, play a white deck. Blue. Blue is control, evasion. It's the best color for drawing a whole ton of cards. If you want to feel like a big brain man, blue. It's also maybe one of the saltier colors because you get to look at what other people are doing and go, ugh, no, stop them. That's fun too. Black is greatness at any cost. You are going to play big giant things, you're going to draw tons of cards, but it's going to hurt. And you're okay with that. It's also the color where if you are looking to be an edgelord, probably your color, you're like, I really want to play 17 million vampires, zombies, bats, etc. Black. Also, if you have not played, very recently we returned to Innistrad, which is like a Halloween land. It's a very classic horror location. So if you're looking for that classic goth horror feeling, that's in standard right now. You can go and buy cheap packs and open up some cool vampires and stuff. Red is the zoomy color. You are going to hit people really hard, really fast. You're going to light them on fire. It's going to be cool and fun. And the last color is green. Green is hard to describe actually, because for a very long time, and honestly currently, green has been, it's the creature color. It's associated with creatures and also everything else, because they don't really know what else to give it. So green has gotten to cherry pick a lot of what it wants to do. But if you're just starting, if you want to feel big and strong, if you want big gigantic creatures like dinosaurs, bears, werewolves, that kind of thing, you get that in green. So we're going to talk about like the super types of deck. And if you've played another card game, these might be familiar because some of these terms kind of like splash around. But we've got aggro. Aggro decks are proactive and fast. Generally your goal is to be the problem, and you're going to hit your opponent hard to try to win the game. The opposite of that is going to be a control deck. Control decks are more reactive. Instead of making it the game plan to be the problem, your game plan is to answer the problem. When somebody does something, you stop them. Once they run out of stuff to stop that, like you need to stop, you hit them back with little tiny things until they die. Combo decks look at those two things and they go, what if I didn't? And instead they have a specific plan that sometimes has nothing to do with what else is going on. And if they can execute that plan, you win. Very cool and fun if you like that kind of thing. And it makes you, again, you feel like a big brain genius when you make it happen. If you want to go somewhere in between, if you're like, I don't want to be an aggro deck, I don't want to be a control deck, and I think that combo decks are too confusing, mid-range might be the deck for you. This is a little bit more flexible. You usually are playing things that are like high, maybe a little bit more expensive than the stuff that's like super low to ground, maybe a little bit less expensive than like big finishers that you're playing in a combo deck after you run out your opponent's resources, but you might be able to outvalue them. You have threats that just keep coming down, and they're better than the little tiny things that the aggro deck is playing, and they're a little bit too strong for the control deck to get around them. Similar to like different types of play styles, there are lots of decks that are more than one of these. Lots of decks have nicknames. So for example, a very popular strategy in Magic is called Aristocrats. Aristocrats has to do with playing lots of little dudes, shoving them into a wood chipper, and when they die, you get value. Magic decks get names from all over the place. It can be part of the deck. It can be a weird meme that somebody made up. Honestly, I recommend not worrying about that too much because there are new decks every second, and people name them all sorts of things. I have a commander deck that is called Bears and Cars. So there are a bunch of nicknames in Magic. If you've never played and you sit down at a table with somebody, they might say some stuff to you that you do not understand. Usually people will explain the inside jokes. Great Merchant of Asphodel is Gary. This is Gary, he is my friend. Solemn Simulacrum is the sad robot. And Sakura Tribe Elder is Steve, for example. So if you are playing a game of Commander with somebody, they may just say, I tap 2 and I play Steve. If you have not heard this before, please feel free to ask somebody who the hell Steve is, because that is the only way you will learn. You pick up a lot of jargon as you go along. I apologize that there is like 20 plus years of history in which a bunch of weird nerds made up names for stuff and kept with it. But it's fun. So I'm gonna go really quickly through some content creators that I recommend. if me rambling for at this point what's been 30 minutes has not deterred you from trying out this game, I have a few people that you can do some further research on, watch some funny videos, see somebody play a game of Magic the Gathering. Tolarian Community College, I feel like it's probably the one that everybody recommends, but quite frankly, that's because it's a really, really good resource. He does everything from how to play card games to which deck boxes and sleeves are the best to podcasts that are more serious about like the Magic community. They're all very, very high quality. I recommend this like as a resource when you are just starting and later down the line. MTG Goldfish is also probably a really big one. Not only do they have a very, very good website where you can look at people's deck lists and try them out, but they also have a super active Twitch channel and a super active YouTube channel where you can see gameplay, you can see deck lists, you can watch people play Commander and get salty at each other. It's good. If you like the idea of Arena, I like CGB or Covert Go Blue. He is a very spiky Arena streamer and he makes a new YouTube video every day. I don't know how he does it, he's insane. But for a while he had uploaded a new Magic Arena YouTube video every day for like 3 years. He tries to make highly competitive but unique. If you are just getting started, he might be a little bit fast, but it's good content, and when you are learning how to play, about how to play them the best you possibly can. If you are interested in Commander, again, most popular format, I have a feeling a lot of people may have come here because their friends play Commander. EDHREC is like the best resource for building Commander decks. They also have a stellar podcast where they talk about Commander specifically and the stats in Commander. They also do a weekly Twitch stream where the hosts of the podcast get together and play. Loading Ready Run is not just a Magic channel, but they are a Canadian variety team of streamers, and they're partially sponsored by Wizards of the Coast. They do weekly Magic streams on Thursday and Friday. They also have a YouTube content, and they do something called the pre-release. So I talked a little earlier about the pre-release event that you can go to as kind of like a hype building thing. This Twitch channel, Loading Ready Run, a week before the pre-release has a live streamed pre-release where you can watch them do this, and they usually get like Magic celebrities and streamers to come to Canada and play a pre-release with them, and it's super fun. And they usually do giveaways and stuff because WotC sponsors it, so you can get some free stuff if you're very lucky. Last one is Spice 8 Rack. Even if literally none of this sounds interesting to you, and you are like, wow, you have made me never want to play Magic in my life, please look up Spice 8 Rack. This man is a fucking treasure. He is from the UK. He has a YouTube channel, and his videos are hilarious and unhinged. He goes on these super deep dives into Magic the Gathering lore. I didn't talk a lot about the lore today because there is a lot of it, but there is a story to Magic, there is fantastic art, there are tons of crazy legendary creatures. If you want to watch really, really well thought out, interesting content about that lore that is also like delightfully weird, Spice 8 Rack is great. And he also did a very good video on cats 2019. I recommend that one too. It's not related to Magic, but I think you should watch it. So for the second half of this panel, I am here to answer questions. So ask me some questions, because otherwise I will have nothing to do and I will be sad. And I will perhaps instead grab my Commander deck and start telling you all the cards in my Atraxa list. So watch out.
Super cards?
Yes. What's up?
How long have you been playing?
About 10 years.
Okay.
If this explains my dedication to this card game, I have a Thassa's Oracle tattooed on my thigh.
All right.
Yeah. Do you have a question?
Yeah. So I'm kind of, and there's a black commander card like, would I be able to like buy a commander deck and then swap out the commander?
Yes.
That character?
Yeah, absolutely. You can do that. The one thing I will say is definitely take a look at the deck list online first, because sometimes what you will find out is that you already have a bunch of those cards, or you really only wanted like 4 cards from there and you own the rest already. I'm going to quote Tolarian Community College here. If you can buy singles, it will be a lot cheaper in the long run if your goal is to build a deck. Buying the individual cards is almost always cheaper than opening packs or buying pre-built decks. Obviously, if you don't have a commander deck at all, if you're new to that game, yeah, go buy a pre-con. It's a great way to get started. Pre-cons, for people that are interested in this, are usually about $40. There are a couple that they did that you can still find in most retail stores from a couple of sets ago, like last year and the year before, that are $20 instead. Do not think that this makes them worse. Some of them are pretty nasty. If you're like, oh, I want that, I want the nasty one that's only $20, the elf one is very good from Kaldheim, and the landfall one from Zenkaikon Rising. So if you see those in a Walmart or something, you're like, oh yeah, that weird person in the magic panel said that one was good. You might like it.
And the cheap option you got as well is you can proxy all those cards.
What's your favorite set?
Oh gosh. So I have a soft spot for like original Theros block because that's when I first started playing. But I actually feel that the latest set, Kamigawa Neon Dynasty, has been like one of the best sets I've seen in a hot second. And also they printed a whole bunch of alternate cards that have anime art, and that's rad as hell. So good. Yeah.
What's your opinion on Rule Zero in EDH as it pertains specifically to the ban list?
Okay, so I've gotten into whole arguments with people about this. I am very pro Rule Zero, with the exception of if I am rolling up to an event, like if you go to like a Magic Fest or something, I recommend bringing at least 1 or 2 things that you know will probably not need a Rule Zero discussion, because you're not going to know the people there, and there's only so much Rule Zero that you can get done in a like 5 or 10 minute conversation before the game starts. Because the worst feeling in the world is sitting across from somebody, you've talked with them, they said the thing was cool, and then they get super mad anyway because actually they hate something that you do, because you didn't even realize it was going to be a Rule Zero conversation. Generally, if I'm going to an event like that, I usually bring like something that's like pre-con-ish level that I've upgraded a little bit, something that's like CDH level and is disgusting, and then like 1 or 2 things in the middle.
What's a Rule Zero?
Alright, so Rule Zero mostly pertains to Commander, but it really pertains to any kind of casual format, and that is that at the beginning of the game, everybody should have a little chat and be like, hey, this is a casual multiplayer format, not a competitive format. Is it cool that I'm doing this? This is what I'm playing. This is kind of like how everything is meant to feel. Because, for example, there is a deck type called Stacks. I like Stacks. Many people hate Stacks, and that is because it's miserable to play against. Because the general goal of that deck, that type of deck, is to shut down everything your opponents are doing, so that the only person that gets to play Magic at the table is the person playing Stacks, and everybody else gets to sit there and watch it. That's not the most pleasant thing. And if you are the type of person who's going to be upset by that, it is way better for me to go, hey guys, can I play my stack? And if they go, I would rather eat glass, then I'll go, awesome, I will play something else, because we are both here to have a fun time, and I would like that to happen. CADH is competitive commander. That's a little bit different. CADH is a whole new kind of ballgame. That is when you have the general ban list and rules of Commander, but instead of playing a casual multiplayer format where everybody's trying to have a good time, everyone is ruthlessly trying to win as fast as they can with the best cards that they can. And that does not mean that everybody is not going to have fun. It's still a really cool format, but it is, one, a lot more expensive, and B, very different. Yeah. So
as someone like brand new coming in, I noticed there's a lot of stuff written on the cards that isn't explicitly explained. You know, like what does fly mean? What does train?
So on Arena, if you hover over a card, it'll actually like blow it up bigger for you, and you can right click on rules text, and it will literally explain what the keyword does. This is extra helpful for like keywords that they print onto cards and don't explain on all of the cards, that is just for that set. So if you're just starting and maybe you grabbed a couple packs of Kamigawa, the new Neon Dynasty, the new set, and you got an alternate art card that says reconfigure on it, that's a really weird rule. It's never existed before, and on all of the alternate art ones, that means, and you can check on Arena always, and also on the regular art versions. Usually reminder text is in core sets, and on new mechanics. The things that like flying, for example, those keywords, they're what's called evergreen. That means that they're never gonna stop doing it, because it's kind of just built into the base game of Magic the Gathering. If any of you play like Yu-Gi-Oh! Or something similar, you are probably familiar with the idea that Yu-Gi-Oh! Does not do keywords. It writes everything out, which means that you have like these super dense boxes of text. That is not to say that there are not Magic cards that have super dense boxes of text, but they have a little bit more standardized, like the amount of text that can actually go on a Magic card. So to get around that, they use like keywords that are like shorthand. So for example, you use flying. Flying is an evergreen keyword. A lot of times you will see a creature that just says flying on it, and it does not explain what that means. If you've been playing for a while, you will know that that means that it is able to attack without being blocked, unless somebody else has a card that has flying, because a bird can attack another bird, or the creature on the other side has reach, which is also an evergreen keyword. And it means that it is big and tall, or also sometimes that it has a bow and arrow and can shoot the bird out of the sky. This has led to a long-running gag in Magic the Gathering, which is either, wait, that has flying, or wait, that has reach, because there are plenty of Magic cards that have art of a thing that looks like it should be flying because it's like a floating ghost or something that doesn't fly mechanically. They've sort of gotten better and worse at this as Magic has continued. If you look at very early Magic cards, there was like some bizarre art, which was in part because at this point in time, they didn't have the same kind of budget that they do now, so they would actually buy art that already existed from artists. They would be like, oh yeah, that looks like we could use it, and they would add it to a card. Nowadays, art direction's a lot stronger. Hasbro is a huge multi-billion-dollar corporation. So the art direction makes it a little bit easier, things are a little bit more coherent, but that does not mean that you still don't see like, hey, this is a giant, why can't it block the bird? Is still a thing that happens. Either one. Sure.
Okay. You mentioned about events and stuff like that. Do you think, in regards to kind of looping back to this rules zero question, do you think the EDH ban list should be more heavily, I won't say enforced, but more looked at now that more EDH events, specifically like Magic events, are starting to become more popular?
So, I'm a nasty combo player at heart. I have a lot of really gross decks, and I am the person that wishes less things were banned. Very much of the opinion that most casual games of Magic aren't playing Hullbreacher, and most competitive games of Magic need Hullbreacher to stop the other nasty stuff. So I'm actually kind of in the, I wish that there was a less enforced rules list for Commander and more pre-game talk where like we figure that stuff out, because for example, I don't think prime time needs to be banned anymore in Commander. I think that there are so many more disgusting things that people are doing constantly that I can have like a 6 mana dude that gets me lands. And yeah, you can do horrible, nasty stuff with a prime time, but I can also do horrible, nasty stuff with my Teshar deck, and nobody's batting an eye at it. Similar thing, Paradox Engine should be banned. There are cards that definitely are ban-worthy and should stay that way. My maybe slightly controversial opinion is that I think that the reserve list should be banned in Commander only. I don't think that it's, because for example, I think CADH would be so much more accessible if the reserve list just wasn't a thing. Like if I didn't have to worry about somehow acquiring a Chains of Mephistopheles or like duels, like that kind of thing, it would be way easier to go to a CADH event and participate. But a lot of places are cool with proxies, so that's probably the way to do that if you're interested in it. Realize I didn't touch on this at all because it's kind of something that's not super relevant when you're very, very first starting. But if you are confused at me saying something called the reserve list, basically there are some Magic cards that are real expensive. I'm sure that most people in the audience have heard of Black Lotus, $20,000+ card. So there are some people that are in Magic the Gathering because they want it as an investment. They have these cards that are or whatever isn't suddenly going to be worth nothing. And way back when, WotC basically said, we hear you and we're going to make the worst decision ever. And they made the reserve list, which was basically a list of cards from like a number of the first couple sets. They said, we are never going to reprint these cards. Cards that had already been reprinted are safe. So, for example, the card Lightning Bolt is like today. It is coming out in the new Baldur's Gate set this summer. But things like Drop of Honey were not reprinted and are now hundreds of dollars, even though they probably shouldn't be. But because WotC basically wrote up this legal document that said that they would never reprint them, they kind of have their hands tied because they're worried that if they do reprint them, that all of these finance bros will come and sue them, and they don't want to deal with it. So there's a whole bunch of cards that are just never going to get reprinted, including a lot of very good ones. That is unfortunate and sad. Like in later sets, they've kind of tried to make cards that are functionally similar, like, but not exactly the same, to kind of try to get around that. And it has worked to varying degrees of success. People that play Commander, whether you love it or hate it, are probably familiar with Jewel Lotus that came out a couple sets ago in Commander Legends, which does the same thing as a Black Lotus, but it's special for Commander. It's also very expensive. It's like $80, $90. Yeah.
quite a question, but if you aren't familiar with where, like, you hopefully know your local game store, but if you don't, or you're not sure what they support, Wizards has a locator service, locator.wizards.com. You can find your friendly local game store that's registered with the Wizards Play Network. Also, if you're looking for a specific format or event, or you want to know where pre-release is going to be, you can look up specific events and see what's near your area.
Yeah. The only thing I will mention on that one is that I believe Locator will only display WotC certified stores.
Correct. WPN. That's what I said.
Yeah. There are definitely good game stores out there that are not WPN. So always take a quick Google search. If you don't see anything on Locator, you might find somewhere that you never knew existed. The only kind of downside to going to a non-WPN store is that there are certain events, pre-releases included, that you might not have available to you there. But that doesn't mean that the community and playgroups in those stores are any worse. The WPN is basically because Hasbro and WotC are this big megalith of a corporation, and they want to make sure that the stores that are kind of representing their brand are nice. So there's a certain amount of space that you need to have, and a certain amount of dedicated marketing, and a certain number of events per week, and that kind of thing. If you have a WPN store or a WPN premium store near you, they're usually fantastic, but if you don't, you can still have a really good time at a non-WPN store, which is Wizards Play Network, if you are curious.
Notice you have commander decks that you can go out, like you said, buy a Walmart, etc.
Yeah.
Find them. But do they have starter decks anymore? Because I'm an old guy. I remember this thing came out, when it came out, and they used to have starter decks that you could get
Yes.
at one point, where it's well, here's a red black deck or whatever.
So,
pay whatever it was to pay for it. You already had one to go, but they were all the same. You bought them. They weren't
for
random.
a while, they did something called Planeswalker decks, which was kind of a replacement for the starter decks. They stopped making those recently, and though I think Planeswalker decks were an okay start for Magic, especially if your goal was just to play kitchen table, more recently they have been doing something that I think is a little bit better actually, which are the Challenger decks. Challenger decks are based on the decks that are currently popular in the standard meta. They're usually tier 1 or tier 2 decks. They're not usually the most tooled out version of that deck, so there's usually a clear upgrade path if you're interested in it. But these are actual playable decks that you could take to a Friday Night Magic and play standard with, right out the gate. So this isn't I have a starter deck or I have a Planeswalker deck and I'm going to Friday Night Magic and I'm excited and I just found out that some of the cards aren't legal in standard, or I just found out that everyone is playing modern and I'm about to get crushed, or everyone's playing standard but it's kind of a spiky format at this game store and I'm about to get crushed. These are a really, I think, good move on Wizards' part for kind of moving towards making the decks that are available for beginners to just buy actually be good if you go to a game store. You can still pick up Planeswalker decks from a lot of places. A lot of game stores still have them. A lot of big box stores still have them. And if you're really looking for I want to play a game of Magic with my family or with my friends at the kitchen table, those are totally sufficient. There is also, if you can find it, a lot of places do still have it, a really good intro to Magic, which is called Magic Game Night. This is kind of like a board game version of Magic. It has 5 beginner decks in it, 1 of each color. After you go through the board game thing, you can keep it like that as hey, let's do this at board game night, it'll be cool and fun. But you can also take 2 of them and shuffle them together and make a full 2-color deck with them. They're definitely worth trying out if either A, you're looking to do this as a family board game kind of a thing or a kitchen table kind of a thing. It's a good starting point.
Thank you.
Yeah.
that. And they knew exactly what they were doing, and I was in my 20s, and I'm like, I'm a grown up, but I have no idea what this is. Have you ever had an experience where you were unexpectedly brutally beaten by a youth?
I've definitely lost some games of Magic to children. When I very first started playing Magic, I had like kind of learned how. The reason I picked it up was because I had a roommate that was like, "Hey, nobody on campus I want to play with." I was like, "Yeah, sure, why not? I like card games." And their boyfriend at the time was like, "Do you want to try Commander?" And I was like, "Sure. I've never played Commander before. This sounds like it'll be fun." And I got a pre-con, and I took my pre-con out, and he played slivers against me, like $1,000 budget slivers against a person that had never played Commander before, that was like playing with like the Daxos pre-con. That was not like children that just knew what they were doing and you didn't. That was like a man who was out to make somebody miserable. But you know, we've definitely all been there. I actually in part wanted to host this panel because when I first started playing Magic, the first time that I ever went to a game store, I was so anxious that I couldn't play because I thought everybody would think I was stupid. Big nerd, and they want to teach you and they want to play a game with you. That's why they're there. Except for, again, like crappy people. And if there are crappy people in the game shop and they're like that to you, you should talk to the people that own the game shop so they can get kicked out. Not the 7-year-olds. They seem like they were probably fine.
Just for curiosity, do you have a favorite card that you always like to go to? Even if it's just a 10-cent card, it doesn't have to be for the ability, it can be for like, this has got the coolest artwork on it, but it's the crappiest card ever. But
Like a yeah. As I mentioned, I have a Thassa's Oracle tattooed on my thigh, which is a card, and that is one of my favorite cards of all time. You said that you played a while ago. Did you play at the time of Laboratory Maniac?
It was Ice Age.
Okay. So
with it, and I have a friend that kind of bring us back into it, but she's so dramatic.
yes, it is a very, very different game than it used to be.
So it's like
So the Lab Man effect is basically if you would draw a card and you have no cards in your deck, normally you lose, right? Lab Man and Thassa's Oracle say, instead, what if you won? And that is one of, I think, the coolest things in Magic. There are not that many cards that do stuff like that. And I just think it's super neat.
Yeah.
One of my other favorite cards that is definitely more of a meme, Azmarino Mardi Dice Tina Coldicard, who you may actually recognize from some flavor text and some early Magic cards. She got her own card in Modern Horizons 2. Her Yeah, unfortunately, I could have put that one in there as a good meme, like, name's long. And it is actually 6 now, so thanks y'all for sticking it out for the long haul where I talk to you guys about Magic. I hope you had a good time.